Just as there was a delay in the first advent, there has been a delay in the second advent. But God is always on time. God is never late. And we say, God, why haven't you come? God, Lord, we long for your coming. But the purposes of God know no haste or delay. And God has a divine timetable. Now, there are two striking lessons for an end-time people of God. First, because God's promises are not immediately fulfilled does not mean they will not be fulfilled. There are times we become impatient with God. Times we say, God, why haven't you come? And at times we become impatient with God in our own lives too. We say, God, I believed in faith, but it didn't happen. We say, God, what's going on here? I've been praying and praying and I don't see any answers, God. But God's timetable is not always our timetable. And the promises of God for you will be fulfilled in your life, even if you do not see them immediately fulfilled. There's a second lesson. Waiting develops patience. Waiting strengthens our faith. Waiting teaches us perseverance. Now there's a danger that in the light of the delay of the Advent, we lose the expectation. We lose the anticipation. We lose the excitement. Did the Jews face that problem during the 4,000 years from the time of Genesis to the time Christ was born? They did. The Jews lost that sense of wonder. They lost that sense of excitement. They thought Christ would come the first time as a conquering king. They failed to understand the messianic promises that he would come to redeem the human race. When the fullness of time was come, what do you think Paul meant by the fullness of time? That the fullness of time had come. There are at least 5 characteristics that had taken place in the New Testament to create that fullness of time. First, we read about the Pax Romana. That is the Roman peace. So there was peace throughout the Roman Empire during the time of Christ's birth particularly. And during this time of peace, travel was very easily. So this time of peace was a good time for the Messiah to come because the gospel could be spread very quickly at a time of peace where it couldn't be spread at a time of war. Secondly, the Roman Empire had linked the empire together with the Roman roads. So there was to travel was much easier, it's much quicker. Thirdly, the Romans had spoken the language of Greek, and the Greek language was throughout the empire. So God had a providential design. When the fullness of time was come, God sent forth his Son. You have this time of Roman roads, rapid transportation. You have the time of the quickness of the spread of the gospel. You have one common language, and that common language is the Greek language. There's a couple other things that were going on during this particular period of time as well. You have the heathen religions that are failing. And the heathen religions are desperately failing the people. And as the result of that, there's an openness, there's a receptivity that hadn't taken place before. You also have the fact that the Jews at this time were coming from throughout the empire, and the Jews were gathering at Jerusalem. And so if Christ comes and he's born, since you have the Roman roads that unite the empire, since you have the Greek language that can rapidly spread the gospel, since you have people from every land gathering, the message of the Messiah is going to go forth. Also, if you have moral decadence, also if you have moral decay, also if there's a longing, Ellen White puts it beautifully in the book Desire of Ages and kind of summarizes these reasons on page 32. Let's take a look at it. On page 32. When the fullness of time was come, Desire of Ages 32, God sent forth his Son. Now, what were the conditions? Providence had directed the movements of nations, the tide of human impulse and influence until the world was ripe for the coming of the deliverer. The nations were united under one government. We continue. One language was widely spoken, was everywhere recognized as the language of literature. From all the lands, the Jews of the dispersion gathered to Jerusalem to the annual feasts. And as they returned to the places of their sojourn, they could spread throughout the world the tidings of the Messiah's coming. At this time, the systems of heathenism were losing their hold upon the people. Men were weary of pageant and fable. They longed for a religion that could satisfy the heart. While the light of truth seemed to have departed from among men, there were souls who were looking for light and who were filled with perplexity and sorrow. They were thirsting for knowledge of the living God, for some assurance of life beyond the grave. As you look at that statement, think of where we are in the world today. Time has passed between the first coming of Jesus and the second coming of Jesus. But again, today, we have the super information highway where the gospel can be spread quickly by internet, by social media, by printed page, by radio, by television around the world. Think about it today. God has designed today that language is no longer a barrier. I can stand here and through variant translation techniques, this message can go to more than 100 countries at the same time. Think of it today. Men and women's hearts are longing for something better. They recognize that this world is on the verge of a stupendous crisis. Think about it today. Nations are weary. Think about it. Pandemic spreading all over the world. Think about it. North Korea, China, Iraq, the potential of nuclear weapons. We've never had weapons that have not been used, that have been created before. For the first time in history, we can blot life off planet Earth. Think about it. Global warming and the concern of science about the future of our planet. Think about it. Earthquake, famine, fire, flood. Think about it. School shootings where kids go to school that should be safe and they're gunned down. When the fullness of time has come, God brought forth His Son. Jesus came the first time when the fullness of time has come. Am I stretching it at all to say that we're living at another time of Earth's history? When the fullness of time has come. God had a definite timetable. God also had a definite plan. Take your Bible and turn to Galatians 4, verse 4. Galatians chapter 4, verse 4. God's purposes know no haste, or what, everybody? Delay. God has a prophetic timetable. Did God have a prophetic timetable down through history? Did He bring out of the historical point, did God bring Egypt, make them powerless, and bring Israel out of Egypt bondage, 430 years? Did He bring them out of Babylonian captivity, 70 years? Did Jesus come on time? He came on time. God's promises know no haste or delay. God had a divine timetable, but God had a definite plan. Look at Galatians 4, verse 4. Here's His plan. But when the fullness of time had come, God sent forth His Son, born of a woman born under law.